and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining me for this edition of the program. As we start the conversation, we begin by reflecting on the situation in Tobago. It has been 21 days since a tanker started leaking bunker fuel off the north coast of Tobago. We've seen many areas affected. Cleanup efforts are still ongoing, but today a mapping process begins to try and understand not only what is in the vessel, but what is under and around the vessel, to see how best it is to move the vessel so that further cleanup operations can continue. However, President of the Environment Tobago, Bertrand Bicari, he believes that there's urgent need to revise the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan to cater specifically for unwanted events that could potentially affect the island of Tobago. Mr. Bicari joins me virtually this morning. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, WSN. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the program. I'll begin by asking you, given your commentary, as I mentioned, 21 days since the tanker was discovered to be leaking bunker oil from that particular vessel. Operations are ongoing. Tobago Emergency Management Agency seems to be leading those operations. What are your thoughts on the efforts thus far to contain not only the leak, but to actually try and contain as best as possible the environment and ecological damage?
The short of it is the people who got this ball in their lap, the people who are tasked to roll out the oil spill contingency plan, they're not dropping the ball. They're doing what the best they could do with very short notice. What we do have, I am concerned with, is that the enabling framework to deal with spills and other unwanted events in our energy scenario. That's what we should be looking at. Using this, as the Prime Minister said, it's a small example of something we should use to build on for other things. Other unwanted events would happen.
Now, according to the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries website, the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan, which was approved on January 31st, 2013, is, and I'm quoting now, to mitigate the impact of oil spills on the environment by setting specific standards for oil spill equipment stockpiles, establishing time frames for oil spill response, and increasing collaboration among partner agencies. This was approved in 2013. Have you seen, or if you have seen indeed, can you grade the efforts on the part of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries to ensure what is stated in the plan is actually the reality?
The reality is the plan is good, but the scenario that the plan was catered for has changed. So if the ministry is in charge of it, are the people in the ministry, do they have the resources set aside to help them work the plan? It's fine that the minister can have the authority to sign off and stuff, but if, for instance, the resources aren't there, and if you go down the road looking at the key actors that have to walk the plan, I would say that there's not enough assets put in place to help them. I can be quite specific. The Coast Guard, after we leave the ministry, we ask ourselves, we assess the ministry, what resources they have to deal with contingency. What resources further down does the Coast Guard, which is the next level? How much readiness do they actually have? And further down, you have the IMA. They've always been short of funds. That's almost a historic story for us. So would they be able to get baseline assessments to be able to say which area is at real risk? Because now they have to come in after the fact in the Tobago scenario. TEMA, for instance, may have had a period where it was formed and found and funded but they're also struggling. Basically, they're just running a coordination effort on the ground here. So long and short, the plan when it was written was a good plan. What has changed is the scene on the ground, and the plan needs to reflect that.
So therefore, 10 years later, the plan is outdated, doesn't reflect what really is happening now in TNT.
Well, of course, I'll use cricket as an example. Cricket has changed the umpiring rules to accept the third umpire. We have a change in scenario. In the Tobago situation, we're in the middle of a transport zone. Trinidad and Tobago sits on top of our oil fields, on top of the Guyanese oil fields, on top of the Surinamese oil fields. Further down, you have Brazil. All of that puts us in a zone of traffic and a zone of spills. Our plan doesn't actually. We wait for something to happen according to the plan and try to work with that, work with contingencies around that. I think we should do more mitigation of it and build our capacity, our adaptive capacity before the thing happens. The plan should be more of a modern sort of plan.
Are you saying that the contingency plan does not cater for unwanted events? I mean, you're quoted as saying unwanted events, oil spills were unwanted events, it shouldn't be unplanned for. Are you suggesting that the plans that are in place do not cater for unwanted events? That there is no planning?
Well, the plan specifically caters for spills. I'm saying that it's too expensive and it puts our ecosystems and our way of life at risk. We should actually try to strengthen the systems that literally mitigate oil spills a bit more. While you keep the elements for spill control, spill management, if you want to use that word, we should add an element within the NOSCP that mitigates a bit more. That would be fixing the framework of how we manage our oil, our hydrogen. Just now is going to come into our space. Do we have a separate plan for hydrogen spills? Whatever that means. So long and short, we should be rethinking. And the other part of your question is, yes, every 4 years they do sort of revisit the plan, but that could be a talk shop. I'm not sure that they actually budget. I'm not hearing stuff in the budget about that over the years. So that plan hasn't grown in capacity. There's not much people, the same names from 2013 are still active in it. So yeah, the ground that the plan has changed. The ground that the plan is supposed to work in has changed. We should modify the plan.
Now, this is the national plan. This is the national plan according to the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. But you're of the opinion that the plan needs to be redone to specifically include Tobago. Is it that Tobago is not focused on a lot in a national plan, in your opinion? Is it that Tobago or what is required or needed for Tobago is not necessarily reflected in the national plan?
If you take the literal reading of the NOSCP, there are four places that they put equipment and resources to deal with spills. They didn't do anything for Tobago. The reality of sea transport, the fields are developing around Tobago. If you look at the offshore blocks, our energy blocks, they are more north of Tobago and east of Tobago. So we're in the middle of it. We shouldn't be waiting until those fields are developed to actually think of Tobago as a fifth emplacement. So long and short, that's one of the changes that you would want to see, that Tobago actually becomes the equivalent of a Labrie or Point Fortin or something.
Now, you went on to say that Tobago is more at risk than Trinidad for oil spills.
Well, that's fairly evident. We had this Gulf Star story early February. The largest tanker spill on record occurred 10 miles off of Tobago. The Asian Empress and two tankers hit each other in 1979, I think it was. That's still on record as the biggest spill ever. One of them sank, one of them burned. The
worst oil spill in history, recorded history. Yes.
Yeah, and that thing is still under the water with oil, one of them. So if you look at volume, and potential for accidents happening, we are more in the zone. Accidents happen on the road, not in your garage. So if you have to fix Tobago that way.
What about the THA's ability to create a plan for Tobago? Do you suppose that the THA has the capabilities to do just such?
Well, Tobago doesn't have an oil field. Tobago doesn't have people who work in the oil. What Tobago does provide is a base, and it does provide bodies for first response. So they've done quite well with the Tier 2 response. They were out there, they saw it, they went. But long and short, they would need better training, more equipment that specifies what tier they're going to respond to. As I say, you need to literally address it in the same way you did with any other part of.
But have you ever mentioned these concerns to any members of the Tobago Assembly, even to the Chief Secretary, Fali Augustine?
I know Alan Stewart, the head of TEMA, he's always been saying he isn't ready in that way and he would like more attention to put to these things. So within their channels, we don't speak directly up the line, we speak to our next. So Environment Tobago does stay in touch with whoever's next. So we, an NGO, we would contribute this kind of conversation and wherever possible anything else to the team in this context of conversation.
Now, moving forward now, in regards to Environment Tobago's position, I understand what you're saying in regards to a national plan and how Tobago should be reflected specifically in the plan. In particular, this oil spill and what we've seen thus far, what do you suppose will be the long-term environment and ecological effects that it will have on Tobago?
No, the ball's not in on that yet. So we have to look at it as a teaching scenario. It's small enough that we can say it's a bad thing, and there's enough from it to learn. We're talking now about beefing up the plan and placements on the ground, but we should also be generally trying to build, you're speaking Tobago, but everybody's capacity should be built up to handle unwanted effect, because you do have climate change is what's behind our need to be adapted. So if we got weak, if our mangroves are spoiled, our ecosystems go down, our cost of living changes and our quality of life. So it scales up from that. So we should be looking at protecting our entire future. And it starts with the unwanted events, getting capacity to deal with the unwanted events.
Well, Mr. Bakari, I want to thank you for joining me on the program this morning, and thank you for your time, making yourself available to share your thoughts and opinions with us. So we'll keep an eye on the ground on Tobago to see what is happening, but 21 days and still there are difficulties. Fortunately, we haven't hit Tier 3 as yet. Let's put it that way.
Well, Tier 3 is a mechanism that allows more help to come in. It's not like necessarily a physical place. You grade the thing with your ability to deal with it. So I wouldn't say that we haven't hit it, because no data has come in of what the impact is on the ground. We don't have financial data impact on the people. We don't have, so long and short, it's not, we shouldn't say it's not a Tier 3, and it's not to do with the volume of oil. It's to do with the impact of the event. And you didn't mention information. Information flow has not been good enough. While there's been a lot of talk, there's not been a lot of information. And some people would say we didn't have the right to know, but that leads to uncertainty, which leads to speculation, which leads to fear. So the information flow should be looked at in a more modern way.
Given that very little information, is there a need to bring in outside help?
Yes, the way the plan works is that we couldn't afford to stockpile everything and have all the assets in place in Trinidad and Tobago. So the plan is based on the oil-producing countries coming together in times of unwanted events and speedily contributing their resources. Think of it as moving the assets where there's actual need, from somewhere between Canada, USA, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and us. Not Venezuela because of the political situation. But strangely, our risk comes from, this is part of the new scenario, Venezuela is contributing, or is a contributing factor to the things we don't want to happen to us. I mean, if we don't have political mechanisms in place, or if we are barred from having relationships, we're going to have more interactions, going to lead to more unwanted events. It's a strange place where we live in right about now.
Certainly. Mr. Vicari, thank you once more for joining me on the program this morning, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
All the very best to you.
Hope to help in the future.
Certainly, sir. All the very best. Take care.
Bye.
At the beginning of the conversation, let me just correct myself very quickly. I did mention north of Tobago. It's affecting primarily southwestern Tobago, so I do apologize for that mistake at the beginning of the program, ladies and gentlemen. 21 days. Let's see what's happening. Let's see what is to come. And I say that very lightly. Very lightly. We do hope that this situation comes to an end very soon. Let's take a break here on the program, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, we'll get into some other conversations this morning. We'll be right back.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. My next conversation focuses on the genre Trinidad music. And last year I had an interview with one artist who is trying to promote more positive lyrics. Within recent times, we've seen headlines throughout the Caribbean about Trinidad artists who have been banned from performing at events on various islands. It's a similar instance down here where we've heard of one Trinidad artist who, well, he faced gun attacks twice, I believe. He eventually was arrested by the police. Let's not get too much into that. We're speaking more so about the genre itself because it has become a fundamental issue. So much so that President of Ghana, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, addressed the issue at the opening of the 46th regular meeting of CARICOM heads of government in Georgetown, Guyana. So let's expand on this a bit more to try and understand the issues here. I'm joined by music manager and consultant at D Media TT, Ms. Delisha Patterson. Hello, Ms. Patterson. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so very much for joining me. You are of the opinion that individuals who consume Trinidad music are literally dealing with deeper issues. Please explain a bit more by what you mean.
Okay, sure. So basically, Trinidad music, right, is basically dancehall. Dancehall originated from Jamaica. Dancehall music is not new to us. The sort of explicit content per se, that is something not new to us either. I am almost 40 years old. So in my teenage years, I used to listen to all types of different music. However, I never used to act on it. My peers, my friends, other family members, we used to listen to all types of content of music, never acted on it. I understand that we're living in a different time now, and we're dealing with more vulnerable youths. So therefore, what I believe is it stems from the individual's mindset, their mentality. Because at the end of the day, anybody can tell you to do anything. You can be influenced by music, by TV, or many different, negative factors that may be in your environment. But it is up to you to make the right choice and to make better decisions. Now, what I would have noticed as well, now Trinidad isn't something new, right? We keep mentioning like one artist or two artists or whatever with certain unfortunate news that's been circulating. However, the Trinidad movement per se, they have hundreds of artists, right? Trinidad music has been around since 2018. So it's like now, all of a sudden, the blame is being cast on the Trinidad music for the crime in the country. And to me, that's unfair to the younger artists who are actually focused on the artistic side of the music and who are focused on, putting out versatile content and positive content. Because there are many, many, many positive Trinidad songs. My artist, Jolano, he is someone, he has, sung explicit songs before, but as his manager, I would have encouraged him time and time again to do, soca music, to do positive music. Ideally, he is originally a reggae artist. He was a reggae artist for about 6 years prior to getting famous with with his hit song titled What Them Want, a Trinidad song. And it's just unfortunate that more people would have recognized him for that song. And, you know, his first ever release is entitled One Love. And how ironic, you know, they just released the Bob Marley movie entitled One Love. So it's like, why isn't there a demand? Why isn't the radio stations, why aren't the radio stations pushing and playing more positive music? At the end of the day, I am just here to try to bridge the gap and offer opportunities to artists and so forth to, you know, understand the business behind the music industry. Once they understand certain facets of the entertainment industry, to me, in my honest opinion, I believe they will be able to make better decisions. A lot of these artists, you know, they don't have consistent access to a studio, and they don't even know the first thing about music publishing and distribution and whatnot. They might just be hanging out with their friends on the block and they decide to spit some lyrics and somebody tell them, yeah, that song better. And they decide to go in a studio and record it and put it out there. They don't rely on radio anymore for promotion because, again, we're living in 2024. We are in the age of technology. Digital media is advancing rapidly. So they promote their own stuff on YouTube, on TikTok. We've seen it. So the blame game, you know, constantly repeating the same thing over and over again, to me, that makes no sense because we have talent in this country and the focus should be encouraging these artists to learn the business and make better decisions when it comes to their music careers.
Let me ask you, and I get what you're saying in respect to, you know, youth have the power to make their own decisions. You know, we should help them as well. We should, you know, lay some focus into that. I get that. But if it's about a positive culture and positive messages, forgive me here, but why is it even referred to as Trinidad? Doesn't that genre alone or the name alone even give way to something?
Well, we have to blame our own Trini dialect for using the term bad. Because when we refer to someone getting a new pair of sneakers or a new outfit, or, you know, you hear the latest Michael Tasia song released or the latest Marshall, you'll be like, that song better. But what a lot of people don't know, Trinidad was actually a clothing brand, is actually a clothing brand, and it has been around for probably 10 years plus, and that brand is actually owned by someone residing in the US, right? The affiliation to music came with DJ Pun and, you know, the dancehall culture again, tying it into the music. Somebody released a song, that song better. So, you know, that's where it continued with the term Trinidad. So it does not necessarily mean bad as a negative. We all use the slang, we all use the term when we are referring to something that is, you know, the latest trend or the hottest style.
Mm-hmm. So going back to your examples of Jelano, and his first release was One Love, but then, you know, it seems as though he's recognized more so for his songs that have explicit lyrics. Why do you suppose that is the case? In fact, why do Trinidad artists even focus more so on explicit lyrics rather than positive lyrics in their songwriting?
I wouldn't say my artist, Jelano, specifically is known for his explicit content because persons are aware he is a versatile artist, and being in the reggae spectrum, you know, he's very well known for that as well. Now, obviously, having been exposed more through the explicit content, is unfortunately what sells. It sells because I can identify certain occasions when producers would have tried to produce, you know, positive rhythms, positive melodies, and encourage the artists to do positive tracks. They would have tried to market the same set positive music to different radio stations and so forth, and they were turned down. They were told no, this music, this type of music isn't trending right now, and we need to play what the youths want. We need to play what the people want, because at the end of the day, we need to drive sales. So if this is what the radio stations are saying, they want to ban it on radio. Who's playing the music? No artist is going on the radio station and physically playing the music themselves. No artist is watching their song over and over on YouTube 3 million, 5 million, 10 million times, right? It's a domino effect. Again, we're wasting time with just blaming. We're in 2024. Trinidad has been around 2018. And we are now on the topic of Trinidad is responsible for crime. The first Trinidad explicit song and video was not just released in 2024, 2023. So why now use it as the, how to put it, the scapegoat for the escalation of the crime situation? Now, I do not endorse crime. I do not endorse nor promote violent activity and so forth. And as a manager, I am here to advise, guide, and provide business solutions to my artists, right? They are the creatives. What I can do is tell them to stay focused and, at the end of the day, make commercial content. Unfortunately, I do not manage everybody. And I must identify as well, there are other managers who try to do the same thing that I'm doing. It's just that we're dealing with a different mentality of these youths, and the focus should be their psyche. It's a psychological effort. And I have since founded a workshop called Music Business Principles, which I started during the COVID in 2020. It is something that I was doing via Instagram Lives to equip artists with knowledge, new upcoming artists with knowledge, showing them how simple it is to at least set your foundational structure in a standardized way. And I believe this is something that can benefit not just Trinidad artists, but soca artists, jazz, whatever genre of music you're singing. Once you're a young upcoming artist, there's supposed to be some form of guideline for you to follow, because some of these artists don't even know the difference between a talent manager and the booking agent. Some of them, you ask them for a promotional picture and a biography. They don't even know what is a biography. But yet we expect them to make the best decisions. They need to be trained. They need to be developed.
Are you saying that they need to be trained to push better lyrics? I understand where
I wouldn't
you're
say
coming.
specifically to being trained to push better lyrics. Their mindset needs to be conditioned. Remember, they are already conditioned by their negative environment. So to bring them out of that, someone who's already conditioned by just saying, don't do this, don't do that, let's be real, some of them may not listen, right? While others may listen, some would not listen. But opportunities, again, need to be provided to all artists, because a lot of these artists coming from communities where they may not have the funding to, establish themselves as a, a well-rounded artist or a very professional artist. So it's like you have to basically give them training wheels, and that's what it is.
Is it more common? I want to go back to this issue about radio stations, because you're right, media does play a role in all of this as well. Is it common, very, very common actually, that artists are turned away and turned down because of the content within their songs? Is it because of the content? Is it because of the lyrics that they often turn down?
Actually, no. The radio station accepts the explicit content. They just ask for edited versions. What I'm saying is there needs to be a push for positive music from everyone. We are all responsible, from the listener to the DJ to the artists themselves. You understand? We all need to be responsible, because, all right, say for example, they ask the artists to do positive music. They say, all right, we do positive music. But when they take it to the radio station are playing it. When they ask for support for viewership to carry up the distribution, royalties and so forth online, the people not listening to it. But you're asking for this content, so why isn't it being accepted and requested? You tell me.
So I want to go back to what you're saying about this blame game, because I get where you're coming from. We can't just blame one side specifically. That this is something that needs to be approached holistically. I get all of that, but I'm focusing on the music this morning. I've had interviews focusing on other aspects of violence and crime in society and trying to and even trying to help youth. In particular, the music. At an event that you attended recently and which you spoke at, the Minister of Education, Dr. Nyanyaspi, she's quoted as saying that parents need to actually look at the content that children consume. Even when it comes to Trinidad, she says that music is like an anthem and like a mantra. She's quoted at saying that at that event. So isn't even the minister acknowledging that this has a negative contribution or negative influence on youths? It doesn't necessarily tell them that this is what they should do or this is what their actions should be, but it's still a negative influence because it's deemed as anthems, as mantras.
Again, there are countless positive songs, Trinidad songs that are being overshadowed because the select few are what being pushed as hype across social media, across traditional media. It is what is being requested. It is in demand. Numbers speak volumes, right? It's all in the numbers. You go on YouTube, you pull up a positive song and you pull up an explicit song. Look at the views. As I mentioned before, these artists are not looking at their content over and over and over and over and over again to carry up these views to the millions. So it needs to be a holistic effort. And I can see why the minister would have made the comments that she made. Obviously, I also believe that she is disconnected from the entire movement. And, it is what is being pushed, at the forefront of the media. So one cannot, get upset, or one cannot disagree to some extent with, the general public for their assumption that Trinidad is just bad. It's about guns and it's about, violence and whatever. Because yes, you pull up some songs and you would see that. But again, the positive music is being overshadowed. So if persons are aware of that and place more focus on that, let us overshadow the negative content.
So let me just interject you for a moment. Let me interject you for a moment. You're a music manager. You are a music manager. So then, in that regard, in that respect, you've said you've also made efforts to try and help educate some of these artists because they didn't know about a biography. They didn't know the difference between a booking manager and a manager as such. But in that regard, given your experience and what you're expressing, what do you propose as solutions for dealing with this issue, even promoting more positive content? Let's forget about the name of the genre for a moment, because you've explained that it's also culturally, how we speak our dialect. But in terms of actual positive lyrics, how do we promote more of these songs that are deemed to be more positive in terms of their content?
For example, the opportunity that you are giving me here this morning to speak out, right? So persons can hear a different side, a different angle, so the narrative could change from just being one thing. More discussions, healthier discussions. I am relaunching my music business principles workshop program, which I plan to introduce to some of the institutions which fall under the National Training Agency. I even volunteer at different secondary schools, talking to the youths, mentoring them. More persons like myself need to continue to speak out and help these artists. And again, not to stray away from your focus topic this morning, but it does not necessarily mean a Trinidad artist. All artists, because I've been in the entertainment industry for, believe it or not, approximately 30 years, right? And I mean, I used to work with Iowa George for many years on his radio station. I used to be a news reporter, news editor. I worked on another TV station. So I do have the experience, right? I do not know everything. And I am always willing to learn and to be, educated by other persons who have the experience and the knowledge and the qualifications to do such. However, each one help one. We can't change these statistics overnight, but each one help one. Long ago, we used to say a village, raises a child. And we're in different times now for many different reasons. But if adults adopt the mindset where, okay, let me stop playing judge and jury, let me mentor, let me help one, let me help at least two. These youths, they're really, really, really misguided by social media and the internet, and they need consistent guidance and support. With these efforts, I truly believe we will start to see a more positive energy and vibe coming out from some of these vulnerable areas, and we will generally see, a refreshing energy from the youths of the country.
Well, I thank you for that message, and I thank you for the efforts that you're making. However, you find yourself also in a very difficult position. If music with more positive content or lyrics does not necessarily make money, is it that managers and artists are going to promote content that is not going to equal to income? So that's another aspect that has to be focused on.
Exactly, which is why, the DJs need to support it as well. If the DJs stop play, and I'm not just saying on radio, because remember, these younger generation of artists, they don't necessarily need radio. But when they go to events and whatnot, if they start to push and encourage, we need a different vibe from artists. Artists have no choice but to follow suit, right? Make the positive music go viral. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we trying to make the positive music go viral? Promoters.
Well, Ms. Patterson,
hire the Jamaican artists to sing in the same explicit content. So we should ban Trinidad, but we're still gonna welcome the Jamaican artists who sing in explicit content. That's very hypocritical. If promoters, let's say, decide to put on an event, or look, there are many reggae concerts coming up, it's the same artists you're seeing over and over. There's no more Soca Monarch. There's no Rising Star presently. There's no Soca Star. There is literally no platform presently for a large group of youths to say, okay, I want to do music. This is my passion. I want to make music my career. I need help. I need some sort of practical training. There are no platforms, for them to venture into such.
Ms. Patterson, I'm sorry to interject. We are out of time, but before we bid farewell, I want to thank you because honestly, we did come to speak about Trinidad music, and you've expanded the conversation, and you've done it so well because you're pointing out so many issues within the industry. And I get the public frustrations with some of the content, but you've even explained that the media plays a significant role in that happening as well. You've touched on a number of topics, even in your concluding statements, pointing out where's the promotion of our younger artists, even in Soca Monarch or Rising Star. That doesn't exist anymore. So there's a lot of responsibility on the corporate side of TNT as well. I will issue an open invitation that anytime we can welcome some of the artists, the ones who are really pushing more positive content and trying to say, listen, this is what Trinidad started as. What we're seeing now, this is not what we intended it to be. I welcome them to the program anytime to have further conversations. But thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning.
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Certainly. It's not the last conversation we'll be having. Thank you so much.
Of course. Okay, take care. Enjoy the rest of the day. All right.
thoroughly enjoyed that particular conversation because Ms. Patterson did open my eyes to a number of issues of which we hear about often enough, but an individual who's actually in the industry trying to manage artists and the difficulties alone that they are facing. Some of you all will disagree with what Ms. Patterson was saying. Some of you all might even say it's excuses, but I do get where she's coming from, and I do recognize a lot of the shortfalls within the industry, even in terms of media and promoting such. So it's good to hear that aspect from that side of this particular conversation. But as I said, there'll be more to come to have a greater and better understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. When we return, I'll welcome my final guests for this edition of AM Prime. We'll be right back.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Psychiatrist urges urgent deployment of psychologists in schools amid rising violence concerns. MP urges Prime Minister to allocate resources for Tobago's oil spill aftermath. Labour movement gears up for national conference to address workers' concerns, and regionally, region urged to brace for warmer weather conditions. Now for the details. Former Independent Senator Dr. Varma Diyal Singh has emphasized the urgent necessity for increased presence of psychologists within schools to address the escalating issue of violence among students. Expressing deep concern over the surge in school-related violence, Dr. Diyal Singh underscored the importance of proactive measures to tackle this concerning trend before it spirals further out of control. Dr. Diyal Singh stressed the imperative of addressing the underlying causes of violence among students at the earliest possible stage. Dr. Diyal Singh proposed the inclusion of psychologists and behavioral therapists within school settings through initiatives such as the Student Support Services facilitated by recommendations from school principals. East Member of Parliament Dr. Rishad Sicharan has urged the Prime Minister to provide more resources to the Ministry of Planning and Development. This request aims to tackle the environmental repercussions of the recent oil spill in Tobago. Dr. Sicharan emphasizes the urgent need for concerted efforts, highlighting the island's vulnerable ecosystem and the imminent threat it faces. The Labour movement is gearing up for action, with plans underway for a national conference of shop stewards and branch officers to address pressing issues affecting the working class. Scheduled for Saturday, this gathering aims to tackle various matters, including ongoing negotiations and strategies to ensure equitable treatment for workers. President of the OWTU, Ansel Roger, emphasized the invaluable contributions of the working class, particularly highlighted during the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier on Monday, union members convened at the Augustus Williams Square in Woodbrook before proceeding to the CPO's office to deliver a letter outlining their concerns and demands. In regional news, the Barbados-based Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum has released its forecast for the upcoming 3-month period from March to May, predicting the weakening of the El Niño event in the Pacific Ocean and near-record warm temperatures in the tropical North Atlantic. El Niño, a climatic phenomenon characterized by abnormal warming of surface waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, is considered the warm phase of the broader El Niño Southern Oscillation. According to the latest publication from CARICOF, the Caribbean region is anticipated to transition into a notably warmer than average season, with the possibility of recurrent heat waves as early as April. The report suggests that March may still exhibit high evaporation rates and an increase in the frequency of short dry spells, potentially exacerbating any existing drought conditions. Additionally, there is a heightened risk of wildfires, particularly in the far northwest and southeast regions. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. My next guest is the political leader of the National Transformation Alliance. He announced that the party intends to compete in all 41 seats in next year's general election and seeking candidates as this process moves forward. Well, Mr. Gary Griffith is with me virtually. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. Now, the National Transformation Alliance is going for all 41 seats in next year's general election. What does this decision stem on, given your partnership with the United National Congress in last year's local government election?
Well, you know, sometimes there will always be a reaction based on an initial action. If we recall, just a month or so ago, the UNC actually announced that they would be contesting all 41 seats for the general election that will take place, whether it be later this year or next year. So the UNC, they actually made that first statement, and we were very curious when it is that after we had a strategic alliance that worked, that you will come out with this, and then it is now we understood, because strange enough, I have more people that I speak to in the UNC executive than probably Kamala Persad-Bissessar herself. So I know every single thing that she does and what she plans to do. And the game plan is, unfortunately, the UNC have not, well, not say the UNC, but Kamala Persad-Bissessar, she has not learned a thing after what has happened 10 years ago. The game plan has been to try to utilize the third constituency of voters as persons that you can just use, get into government and discard. So what her concept is, and this is not to Kamala Persad-Bissessar to blame. Unfortunately, she has taken all her advice and direction from Julie John, who's the deputy political leader. Sadly, I mean, it is her right to whoever she wants to take advice from. Julie John, just prior to the local government election, I had a meeting with Julie John and Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and Julie was point blank. She said, "We do not need you. We do not need any other party. We can win on our own." Now, anybody could make an opinion, but when you have someone who has the ears of a political leader, and she has no experience or training on involvement in running a government, in being a minister, in being in cabinet, your expertise you brought in to guide the UNC is because you are qualified to sell fried chicken and coffee in rituals, and that makes you the person that Kamala Persad-Bissessar is taking advice from. So Julian has been point blank. Throughout the local government election campaign, she was very upset about this alliance, and she has finally, it seems that she has finally gotten into the ears of Kamala Prasad-Bissessar. And if you listen to her last night on the Monday Night Forum, she said every single thing that she said was to ensure that persons who are not PNM or UNC will never vote for UNC under Kamala Prasad-Bissessar as the political leader of the UNC. She showed blatant disrespect, disregard to the 3rd constituency, who made you leader, who appointed you, how many votes you have, and then have the audacity to tell us to pull our weight. I was the person who, for 6 hours a day, for 6 weeks in the local government election, had to go in UNC areas to try to get UNC candidates to win their seats, all through San Fernando, all through Sangre Grande, 6 hours a day for 6 weeks. She never set foot once, other than being escorted onto a platform for a meeting every couple of days. So to have the audacity to question the work ethic of the NT and all other third parties, to try to allude to the fact that you want to have respect and to treat us the same way you treated the 3rd constituency that led to the demise of the People's Partnership, it has seemed obviously that she has not learned a thing.
So for all intents, so what you're saying this morning, this strategic alliance, as it's been referred to, is dead. There is no possibility that the NT and the UNC will work together again in the next general election?
Oh, no, definitely not. That's definitely what I'm not saying. Being somebody in the military, I play to win, and I intend to win. What I do know is that I'm a realist, and I understand political strategy. I will not be easily influenced by someone who was a fried chicken salesperson to direct me as to what to do. Because what happens, there will always be persons within the UNC, as small numbers they may be, will prefer to be big fish in small pond. Some of them become intimidated when that 3rd constituency joins with the UNC. But I am also aware that there's not a snowball chance in hell that the PNM could ever be defeated if there's a 3-horse race. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, you can't be that naive. She was part of that 3rd constituency in 1991 when they got 127,000 votes. And they did not get a seat, but it ensured the PNM easily won in 1991. The same thing happened in 1981 when the ONR got 91,000 votes. The same thing happened in 2007 when the COP got 147,000 votes. And let me show how strong that 3rd constituency is. A 3rd constituency at its smallest can actually cause a change of a government. Ramesh Maharaj had a political party in 2001, and in that political party, he got 180 votes into the Pune, 180 votes. And that caused the PNM to defeat the UNC in that seat. That caused Patrick Manning to become the Prime Minister. So if Kamala Prasad-Bissessar does not understand political history, she does not understand the power and the strength of that 3rd constituency, my intention is to ensure that we form some type of a strategic alliance, but we are not going to be disrespected. For 3 weeks, she has never communicated with us. We got a message that was claimed to be sent by her stating that we are to ignore Gary Griffith and Jack Warner and make them irrelevant. So she's doing the exact thing that she did, as I said, in 2010 to 2015. I saw political leaders of the COP stand up in the corridor in the office of the Prime Minister every Thursday after cabinet for hours, waiting to see her for 5 minutes. That is the type of disrespect we do not want. We are fully aware that the UNC is a larger party, but we are not going to sit idly by and see a repeat of that 147,000 voters of that 3rd constituency be disrespected. The audacity of Kamala Prasad-Bissessar last night to state that virtually there's no such thing as a 3rd constituency, there's PNM and the UNC, and there's no room for anybody. She went along that road of trying to disregard and disrespect persons who might easily say, I am not in support of the PNM and I'm not in support of the UNC, and to disregard them by trying to say that people are doing that because they see the PNM and UNC based on tribal politics. No, the bulk of that 147,000, it involves persons who just want a change. They want a different type of politics from the PNM and the UNC. And the numbers there, as I said, it moved from 91,000 to 127 to 147. And even if you bring it down to the smallest number for the NTA, say 41,000, you put that into 41 constituencies, that's 1,000 votes per constituency. That assures the PNM would win in those marginal seats. Did she do maths? Did Kamala do maths in August not to understand that? So our intention is to ensure that this must work. But it is going to be very difficult for it to work when you have a political leader of another party that shows blatant disrespect, disregard for that third constituency, and feels she could do the same thing that she did in 2010 to 2015. The People's Partnership collapsed because of the disrespect for parties outside of the UNC. And let me tell you, to all members of the UNC, I am more UNC than most persons who are around Kamala Persad-Bissessar. I was in the UNC executive. I won my seat against the Pandey slate, inclusive of Kamala, in 2006 on the Dukaran slate. It was just myself, Manohar Ramsaran, and Sadiq Bash. The three of us won out of the other 15 because the UNC rank and file saw Gary Griffith as somebody that they wanted to assist in the leadership of the UNC. So let us not try to fool anybody about feeling that Gary. I am more UNC than most persons in the UNC. So I fully understand and respect the rank and file of the UNC. But everybody in the UNC is fully aware that to win, we must work together. We cannot work together if you have a political leader that is continuing to disrespect and disregard the views of the third constituency.
I mean, it's already been hinted at, but are you and the political leader of the UNC even communicating?
No, what she has done for the last 3 weeks, she has not, which is where it is that it was comical to hear her say that people need to pull their weight. We cannot find you, we cannot see you, you do not want to speak to us. We got a message stating in a Zoom meeting she had on Saturday, we had to disregard Gary and Jack to try to make them irrelevant. I mean, what kind of leader are you? You're trying to unify a country? Are you trying to build a country? What we are asking for is that the UNC must ensure that there's a political leader who is willing to communicate, who is willing to be humble, who is willing to embrace persons outside of the UNC. That is the only way to the UNC rank and file that you could win. You cannot have a political leader that goes on a platform as she did last night and attack third parties, speak about you must be disciplined and we will not take disrespect, and then have the audacity to attack the legacy of Basio Pandey by stating this is how they treated the UNC years ago as sheep. Basio Pandey was the only person who had the capability to embrace that third constituency into the UNC to ensure that the UNC could have won an election on its own. And granted, it lasted a few months because of the same type of mentality of Kamala Persad-Bissessar, with people in the UNC saying, no, you have no right to have gotten these people. Basio Pandey never treated people as sheep, but he understood you have to embrace persons who may not be diehard UNC in Deep South and Central. The NT and myself, I was able to walk the length and breadth of the corridor, which is the catalyst towards winning an election, throughout Diego Martin, from Paramin to Lupino, Bonnier, the hills in Cameron, in Scorpion, in Caranage, Laventille, Sealots, Beetham, La Hawkita, all in the hills in Arima. Kamala Persad-Bissessar will never set foot there. She has never been seen from Diego Martin to Arima. So for her to have the audacity of saying, let us see your strength, and then to be so rude to say that social media does not win an election. You have a political leader who has not won an election in 14 years after 8 elections, trying to give other political parties guidance how to win an election. It was comical. And then to state that social media doesn't win an election, neither do political parties that bust in the same 300 people with 20 maxis at every meeting and then say the meeting is a success. So, or political parties that would be rude and disrespect the third constituency. So if it is that she does not want to communicate with us, she has listened to Julian John, she has taken the bait, and anybody who wants to separate the UNC from the third constituency, it's either you are a plant of the PNM or you're very stupid.
Let me ask you,
anytime that happens, it is going to spell success for the PNM.
Let me ask you, Mr. Griffith, you said you're more UNC than Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and this comes on the heels of the NT searching for 41 candidates for next year's election. Are you more UNC than you are NTA?
No, not at all. But what it means is that being in the UNC in 2006, I understand the concept of the UNC, what it stands for. It is an excellent party. They have done so much for this country. But I do understand that Basio Pandey's concept of the UNC was, he was always pushing that agenda of trying to put national unity. And that is why I understand. So when I say I'm more UNC, not of Kamala, but of most persons in the UNC, because I actually won my seat in the UNC executive against Basio Pandey, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, Jack Warner, Wade Mark, that whole posse. So the UNC rank and file respects me and they understand me. They can embrace me and vice versa. What I'm stating is that because I understand the UNC's culture and the concept, I am able to understand the importance of us working together. So me being the political leader of a third party, but was actually inside the UNC once upon a time, I understand we must respect them. We must show that we do understand that they are a very powerful force that must be respected. But in the same manner, the UNC must have a political leader that is willing to be humble, to embrace and to unify and show that there's a space for the third constituency, and not to use them as you did in 2010 to 2015. And then when you get in government with your 21 seats, you could discard them. So the game plan of Jolene John and company is for the UNC to get all the marginal seats, win about 22, 23 seats, give the third parties to go up for Lavantil and Labre and Port of Spain, and then after you have your 22 seats, which is exactly what she did in 2010 to 2015. I give the promise to that 147,000 persons who voted in 2007 and to the young voters who did not have that opportunity. I am not going to let that happen. I am not going to have that third constituency disrespected. But in the same manner, I do understand the importance of us working together. It seems that Kamala Persad-Bissessar does not want it to happen. The comments she made last night, she drew a line in the sand. How could you, let me quickly add, how could you be a political leader and you're leading an army and you know that you have limited resources fighting against the real enemy, and instead you're now going to try to pick a fight with other armies to fight against them that is now going to diminish your resources in your front line against the real enemy that is attacking you? So now she's going to deplete her resources because she's trying to pick a fight. You as the UNC should be trying to embrace other parties, not come on a platform last night to attack, discredit, undermine, and make fun of a third constituency. So she's now adding more enemies to her front line that is not going to weaken her defense in the real enemy, which is the PNM.
Mr. Griffith, you've said that the NG is now the de facto third party here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's often seen as a two-party political system, but following what has been deemed as a success in the last local government elections, you're also deemed to be a very popular individual. Members of the public still speak very highly of you, and even as your time as Commissioner of Police. That being said, though you may see the NT as the de facto third political party, and though you are a popular figure in many aspects, would this translate into success for the NTA in a general election come 2025?
Well, okay, firstly, let me clarify. I'm not saying that we are the de facto third political party. There are several other political parties, and unlike Kamala Persad-Bissessar, so that is where I am different to her. My style of leadership is to embrace, to respect. For me to say that we are the be-all and end-all third political party, I am automatically now disrespecting other political parties. Why? Because of Gary Griffith's image and his popularity? No, that would be disrespect to these other parties. So whether there's a political party that may only have 100 persons, I understand and respect and would embrace those parties, which is what I intend to do. So all of these other parties, if it is we have the common goals, we have the same principles for proper governance, I see all of these third constituencies as being part of a process towards good governance. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So having said that, so I don't want it to be seen that because if I speak like that, I'll be animal farming down the place. I'll be operating exactly as Kamala Persad-Bissessar is doing in how she speaks about the NTA. She spent more time bad talking and attacking me and the NTA, even though in a cowardly manner by not calling our names, than she did for Keith Rowley, which is amazing. So we are the third political party, but when Keith Rowley is on a platform, he spends more time attacking me than Kamala. And now Kamala is on a platform and she's spending more time attacking me than Rowley. So it shows the significance of that third constituency, because both the PNM and the UNC, they are mortified of the fact, especially with the PNM, if the UNC and the NT and the other parties get together, it spells certain defeat for the PNM, as we saw in 1986, 1995, and 2010. If that third constituency decides to go on their own based on arrogance by the political leaders of the UNC, we will see the PNM winning by a wider margin as they did in 1981, 1991, and 2007. So I fully understand, and I intend to embrace and meet with all of these other third parties Having said that, I do understand that we may get again 150, 170,000 votes. It may not be enough to win an election. I play to win. And the reason why you form a political party is to get in government. So we do know the importance of us working with the UNC. There are people in the UNC that may be plants of the PNM or just, as I said, virtually ignorant and would prefer to win alone so they can run the government on their own. I give a promise to the country. The UNC cannot and should not be a government on its own. I was there in cabinet where I saw several senior UNC persons giving state contracts to gang members. That is a typical example. So when Kamala speaks about performance and the principles of, and Julian John speaking about if the UNC, then who? Then who? The NTA. Because the NTA is the only political party that is once and for all going to fix this country, clean up this country. Both for PNM and UNC, we have seen these persons when they get in government, they provide major contracts to gang members that are proven to be the catalyst towards what has caused crime in this country. If anybody could fix this country, it is going to be the NTA. If not the NTA, then who? And using the same words of Julian John last night, because we are going to ensure proper governance. We are not going to sleep with the devil. We are not going to facilitate criminal elements in the hope that they will vote for us or stop crime. So those are the things that we must be part of a government. Unless we are there, we are just going to have exchange in government.
Final question, Mr. Griffith. I'm sorry that you mentioned all that towards the end of the interview, because there's a lot more to get into now. So let's just say this is part one. But my final question, given the time, is what constituency do you plan to run for in 2025?
Well, definitely. Remember, as I said, the corridor, the NTA, we decided to prove our worth in the local government elections by going into the belly of the beast. We went after the 31 safest PNM seats, and every single one, inclusive of from Lopino, Diego Martin, seats that the PNM would have won by 1,300 votes, they ended up winning by 200, 300, 400. So we cut major inroads into the PNM that the UNC could never do. Julian John and Kamala Persad-Bissessar could never walk the East-West corridor, and they know that, so they stay in Deep South, and they feel that you can win an election. You have to get in there and respect that third constituency, respect that corridor. So the NTA, as well as the other political parties, as I said, we intend to go up for all 41 seats if the UNC does not want to play ball with us. However, we are going to put a lot of focus on the marginal seats. Usually who wins St. Joseph wins the election, and very soon you'll be hearing who is going up for St. Joseph under the NTA and the other parties. So the game plan is obviously we are a national party. We would be seeking candidates for all 41 seats, as the UNC said they're doing. But unless and until Kamala Persad-Bissessar takes away this arrogance of believing that the UNC can actually just bring in these parties to get the votes and then discard us, it ain't going to happen.
Mr. Griffith, thank you very much for your time this morning, sir, on the program. Like I said, it'll have to be part one because we are out of time. But thank you very much, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All the very best. Political leader of the National Transmission Alliance, Gary Griffith, joining me on the program this morning. If anything, that interview confirms that there is a rift. I mean, that's me saying it very politely. It seems to be a bit more than a rift between the United National Congress and the NTA, or in particular, members of the executive in the United National Congress and the political leader of the National Transmission Alliance. But Mr. Griffith has not actually removed from the table the possibility of working with the United National Congress in 2025. So from participating in crime talks a couple of weeks ago to what we're hearing about and learning about this morning, well, let's see how this plays out, if anything will change over the course of time. But we will have to welcome Mr. Griffith back to the program to speak about the NTA's plans for Trinidad and Tobago, given that the elections are just a year away. It's election season, of course, here in TNT. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Keaton Shaw, thank you very much for joining me on AM Prime this morning, and thank you very much to my guests for their time and for their contributions to the conversation. Wishing you a safe day ahead. May it be a productive one in all that you do. The air quality isn't as bad as it was yesterday, but it's still rather unhealthy, so please do your very best to look after yourself. In all that you do, let's make TNT a bit sweeter, as I always say. Anyway, this is WSN Content Capital, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
Let's go to the last part.